The cold seeped into our bones as the fog thickened around us, pressing close like a suffocating shroud. Mark's groan cut through the uneasy silence, drawing every eye. He was lying on the damp marsh grass, his face pale and contorted in pain, clutching his leg where the injury had worsened, the sharp sting of broken tissue, now unmistakable. "I can't move," he gasped, frustration and fear mingling in his voice. I knelt beside him, trying to hide the tremor in my hands. The weight of responsibility pressed down on me, heavier than the thick mist enveloping us. We were unraveling, fraying at the edges, just as the marsh itself seemed to twist and distort around us. The footsteps behind us had grown louder, closer, but now it was the fracture within our group that threatened to be our undoing. "We need to keep moving," I said, voice steadier than I felt. "We can't stay here. The marsh, it's not safe." Mark shook his head, grimacing. "I'm not leaving until this leg's fixed or I can get some rest." "We don't have that kind of time," Lena said softly, her voice carrying the weight of one who had seen too much already. She sat close to me, her notebook resting forgotten on the ground. "This place, it's playing tricks on us. It's not just the fog or the shadows, it's something else. Something that wants us to fall apart." Sarah was pacing nearby, camera in hand, snapping photos in the dim light that barely penetrated the fog. Her movements were frantic, desperate, as if capturing proof of our nightmare might somehow save us. I caught a glimpse of her screen, twisted shapes, shadows that lacked form, flickering in and out of reality like phantoms trapped between worlds. "Look at this," she whispered, voice nearly shaking. "These aren't just reflections or tricks of light. There's something here, something wrong." Tom, ever the optimist, even in the darkest moments, tried to break the tension. "Well, if it's ghosts, maybe they'll at least leave us alone if we're boring enough," he joked weakly, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The joke fell flat, swallowed by the oppressive silence that followed, punctuated only by the distant, unnatural echo of footsteps that seemed to circle us endlessly. Claire clutched Lena's arm, her face pale beneath the dirt and grime of the marsh. "We need to keep together," she said, voice trembling. "If we let fear decide, we'll be lost forever in this place." But fear was already seeping into every corner of our minds. I felt it clawing at me, unrelenting and cold. My brother's face flashed in my memory, the accident that I still couldn't explain, the silence that followed. I swallowed hard, pushing the guilt and doubt aside. I had to be strong, for them, for all of us. "Mark, we'll try to stabilize your leg with what we have," I said, reaching into my pack for the makeshift bandages. "Then we move as soon as we can. No one stays behind." He nodded, jaw clenched, and I saw the raw determination beneath his pain. But even as I spoke, the fog seemed to pulse, thickening, swallowing the edges of the clearing like a living thing. The lantern man's light flickered somewhere beyond the veil, a cruel beacon reminding us we were still trapped in his domain. Shadows danced at the edges of our vision, shapes that didn't belong to any of us. Paranoia crept in. Was that movement a companion or a threat? Each breath felt heavier, laden with dread. Sarah's camera shutter clicked relentlessly, capturing moments I wished I could forget. Lena leaned closer, whispering the stories. "They say spirits like him feed on fear and fractures. If we break apart, we're his prey." I met her eyes, searching for hope and finding only shared terror. "We'll hold together," I promised, though the words felt fragile. The night pressed on, each second stretching into eternity. Mark's injury slowed us, but the real battle was inside our heads. The marsh was no longer just a place, It was an enemy, alive and cunning, and the lantern man was its heart. As the fog thickened, so did the silence, broken only by the unrelenting footsteps that echoed just beyond sight. We huddled close, a fragile circle of humanity against the creeping void. And in that moment, I understood the breaking point wasn't just Mark's injury or our physical exhaustion. It was the fracture in our minds, the struggle to hold on to reality when everything around us whispered lies. I took a deep breath, steeling myself against the despair. We keep moving. Together. But even as I said it, the question lingered, cold and relentless. How much longer could we hold on before the marsh claimed us all? The fog had thickened to an almost impenetrable wall by the time we resumed our slow, agonizing march. Every step was a battle of will, Mark limping heavily, the rest of us supporting him as best we could. Sarah's camera flashed sporadically, her hands shaking as she tried to capture evidence of the horrors closing in around us. "Look," she said suddenly, voice tight with fear. She pointed to a photo on the small screen-and image of a tall, shadowy figure barely visible in the mist, the lantern's flickering glow casting twisted shadows on the marsh grasses. "That's him," Lena whispered. "The lantern man. He's always just out of reach, watching." Tom's attempt at humor had long since faded, replaced by a grim silence. Even Claire's steady presence couldn't mask the fear that hung in the air like thick smoke. As we moved, the marsh seemed to warp, trees bending unnaturally, the ground shifting beneath our feet. Our senses betrayed us. Sounds echoed strangely, shadows flickered where none should be. I could feel the lantern man's influence tightening its grip on our minds, blurring the line between what was real and what was nightmare. At one point, I caught Mark's eye. The fire of skepticism that had once burned so fiercely was now dimmed, replaced by raw, unguarded fear. He swallowed hard, nodding slightly as if admitting a truth he'd long fought to deny. "We're not alone," he murmured, "and this isn't natural." I reached out, gripping his shoulder. "We survive by sticking together. Don't let it break you." Hours passed like moments, the night folding in on itself. Every snap of Sarah's camera shutter, every whisper from Lena and Claire about old legends, every strained breath within our circle was a reminder that the marsh held us tightly, unwilling to let go. By the time exhaustion threatened to consume us, I realized the true cost of our journey wasn't just the physical wounds or the creeping terror. It was the gnawing fear of losing ourselves, piece by piece, to the darkness. As dawn threatened the horizon, the footsteps behind us slowed, but the oppressive silence remained. We were broken, battered, but still breathing. For now, the marsh had not finished with us yet. The marsh closed in around us like a living thing, its fog thickening until it was almost tangible, pressing against our skin and filling our lungs with its damp, heavy breath. The pale light from the lantern man's flickering beacon seemed to pulse with a cruel rhythm, casting elongated shadows that writhed and stretched like grasping hands. Every step we took was muffled by the thick peat beneath our feet, swallowed quickly by the fog's oppressive silence. I clutched my jacket tighter, feeling the cold seep into my bones as the mist curled around us, obscuring the shapes of trees and patches of brackish water. The marsh was no longer just a place. It had become a prison. Our numbers had dwindled. Tom, our bright buoy of hope and levity, had vanished without a trace. One moment he was by my side, cracking a joke to lighten the tension. The next, his voice was swallowed by a sudden, eerie chill that swept through the group. I remember the look in his eyes, the flicker of panic, the sudden loss of humor, before he stumbled backward, swallowed whole by the fog. leaving only a whisper of a cry hanging in the air. The shock of his disappearance struck us all like a physical blow. Mark's usual brash confidence shattered, his broad shoulders sagging as he scanned the mist in desperation. Lena's usual calm, intuitive presence gave way to trembling hands clutching her notebook, her wide eyes darting at every shadow. Sarah's camera clicked relentlessly, each flash illuminating the grotesque and unnatural forms lurking just beyond our reach. Even Claire, usually quiet and steady, seemed frayed at the edges, her gaze flickering nervously as if expecting the marsh itself to reach out and seize her. We huddled closer, our voices low and tense, trying to piece together what the marsh was doing to us. The lantern man's light continued to pulse, beckoning and mocking us in equal measure. It was no longer a guide, it was a predator's lure. The fog twisted and shifted, disorienting us until we could barely tell which direction we had come from. Every sound was amplified, the drip of water, the snap of a twig, the distant echo of footsteps that were not ours. I felt my heart hammering against my ribs as I tried to steady my breath, to keep the panic from rising. "We have to stay together," I urged, my voice a low command that barely disguised my own fear. "No one goes off alone. We keep moving toward the light, but carefully. Watch each other," Mark grunted, still skeptical but visibly shaken. "This place, it's playing tricks on us. We need to find solid ground, fast." But the marsh had other plans. The earth beneath our feet was treacherous, sucking at our boots with cold, silent hunger. Shadows flickered at the edge of our vision, twisted branches that resembled grasping hands, faces that vanished when we tried to focus on them. The lantern's glow illuminated the distorted reflections in the water, revealing forms that should not have been. Tom's absence was a constant aching presence. We called his name into the fog, voices cracking with desperation, but the only answer was the cold wind slipping through the reeds. I could almost hear his laughter carried away by the marsh, a cruel reminder of what we had lost. As the night deepened, the marsh seemed to tighten its grip, each breath growing more labored, each step more uncertain. I held Lena's hand briefly, feeling the tremor that ran through her frame, a mirror of my own faltering courage. "We're going to get through this," I whispered, more to convince myself than her. Sarah's camera captured it all, the madness creeping into our eyes, the way the fog swallowed us piece by piece. Her frantic clicks punctuated the silence like desperate pleas for help, each photograph a testament to the nightmare unfolding around us. The lantern man's light flickered again, brighter and more insistent. It was a beacon, yes, but not of salvation. It was a promise of doom, a siren song dragging us deeper into the marsh's heart. The shadows lengthened, the fog thickened, and the marsh's grip closed tighter still. I fought to keep my mind clear, to hold on to the last threads of hope, but beneath it all was a suffocating dread, a certainty that this place was not just a landscape of reeds and water, but a living nightmare that fed on our fear and despair. And as the night stretched on, I knew we were running out of time and options. The marsh was no longer just a setting for our journey. It was an antagonist in its own right, a cruel and merciless force that would not let us go without a fight. And in the distance, the lantern man waited, his flickering light a constant, haunting reminder that escape might be nothing more than an illusion. The damp chill of the marsh seeped into our bones, but it was not the cold that weighed heaviest on my heart that evening. As twilight surrendered to the thickening fog, Lena and Claire huddled close, their whispered voices threading through the murmur of the marsh's unseen creatures. In the dim glow of a flickering campfire, meager and trembling, they pored over the scraps of folklore, Lena had painstakingly collected. The leather-bound notebook, its pages yellowed and edges frayed, held stories that seemed too sorrowful, too haunting, to be mere myth. "It says here," Lena began, her voice a hushed thread of sound that long ago, before this marsh was touched by time and tragedy, there was a man who lived at its edge, keeper of light in his village, guiding travelers through the treacherous fog. But one night he vanished, swallowed by the very marsh he guarded. Some say he was betrayed, others that he gave himself to protect those he loved. Claire leaned in, tracing a finger along an illustration of a shadowy figure clutching a lantern, eyes hollow, face indistinct. "They call him the Lantern Man," she whispered, "a soul bound to the marsh, forever wandering, caught between life and death." I listened, the words stirring a cold ache deep inside me. The story mirrored the weight I carried, the loss of my brother, the unresolved grief that shadowed every step I took. This spectral guardian, or perhaps prisoner, of the marsh seemed less a monster now and more a tragic reflection of our own suffering. Mark, seated a few paces away, winced as he shifted his injured leg, his skepticism battling with the undeniable truths emerging from our shared terror. He caught my gaze, a flicker of doubt crossing his rugged features. "Folklore or not," he grunted, "there's something very real out there, but understanding it might be our only chance." The night deepened, and the marsh around us seemed to breathe with a life of its own. I stood at the edge of our small clearing, the fog curling around ancient trees like ghostly fingers. Far off, the faint, flickering light of the Lantern Man pulsed an eerie heartbeat in the darkness. I felt drawn, not just by fear, but by a kinship forged in loss and sorrow. "I think," I said quietly, turning back to the group, "that this figure is trapped, bound by pain and memory. Like us, he's caught in a place between worlds, haunted by what he's lost." Lena nodded, her eyes shining with a mixture of fear and empathy. "If we understand his story, maybe we can find a way to break free, both for him and for ourselves." The marsh whispered its secrets around us, the fog thickening as if to listen. Shadows danced at the edge of vision, and the oppressive silence pressed in. But for the first time since we became lost in this labyrinth of mist and dread, a sliver of clarity pierced the darkness. Yet, with understanding came a heavier burden. The Lantern Man was not simply a monster to flee, but a soul entwined with our fate, a mirror of our own grief and desperation. The path ahead was no longer just about survival. It was about confronting the echoes of the past that haunted us all. As dawn threatened the horizon, I felt the fragile threads of hope twist with the chilling certainty that the marsh held more secrets and more sorrow than we could yet imagine. And in that quiet moment, the glowing lantern flickered once more, an unspoken invitation to follow, to face the shadows, and to confront the darkness within and without. The night was far from over, and the story of the Lantern Man was only just beginning to reveal its true, haunting depths. The fog hung low and thick like a suffocating blanket, muffling the sounds of the marsh and swallowing the dim glow of the Lantern Man's flickering light in the distance. We huddled together in a small clearing, the gnarled roots and swampy earth beneath us cold and unforgiving. My heart pounded fiercely, each beat a hammering reminder of the peril we faced. Yet, amidst the suffocating dread, a flicker of hope sparked within me, first in what felt like an eternity. "We can't stay here," I said, my voice cutting through the silence that had settled like a heavy shroud. The others turned to me, faces pale and eyes wide with exhaustion and fear. "We have to move now." Mark shifted uneasily, wincing as he adjusted the makeshift bandage wrapped around his injured leg. His usual bravado was tempered by pain and the slow, creeping realization that the marsh was more than just a natural trap. It was something far worse. "You really think we can outrun that thing?" he asked, his voice rough but steady. I met his gaze, my own resolve firming. "We have no choice. The longer we wait, the closer it gets." Lena stepped forward, clutching her notebook tightly. "The legends speak of the Lantern Man leading travelers to their doom, but there's mention of a way to break free. We find a clearing where the fog thins and the light can't reach us." Claire nodded beside her, eyes scanning the swirling mist. "It's a long shot, but it's our only shot." Tom tried to lighten the mood with a half-hearted joke, but the tremor in his voice betrayed his fear. Even Sarah lowered her camera, the usual skeptic in her replaced by someone who had seen too much to deny the supernatural. "All right," I said, taking a deep breath. "We stick together, move quietly, and keep our eyes on the light, but don't follow it blindly. We find that clearing, we survive." The group murmured assent, the fragile unity we'd managed to hold together snapping back into place like a thread pulled taut. Mark gritted his teeth and stood, pressing a hand against a nearby tree for support. "Lead the way," he said, his voice rough but accepting. We stepped cautiously into the dense fog, the cold dampness seeping into our bones. Every rustle, every distant splash, every whisper of the marsh seemed magnified in the silence. The footsteps behind us had grown louder, more insistent, and the flickering lantern light pulsed unnaturally, sometimes distant, sometimes maddeningly close. I felt Lena's hand brush against mine as she whispered, "We're being watched." "I know," I replied, "but we have to keep moving." The marsh seemed to close in around us, twisted branches clawing at our clothes, the ground slick and treacherous beneath our feet. The light ahead flickered wildly, casting dancing shadows that seemed to mock our every step. The footsteps behind quickened, echoing like the beating of a monstrous heart. Mark stumbled, pain flashing across his face, but he pushed forward, his determination a beacon in the growing darkness. "Not giving up yet," he muttered, a faint grin breaking through the grim set of his jaw. The group's breath came in ragged gasps, but the thought of escape lent us strength. Lena's whispered readings of the folklore guided our path, Claire's steady presence a balm to our fraying nerves. Tom's occasional quip, though subdued, helped stave off the creeping madness. Suddenly, the fog thinned, a subtle shift that felt like a promise. The clearing was close, but the Lantern Man's light surged, a furious pulse that sent a shiver down my spine. The footsteps behind us erupted into a cacophony of sound, and the marsh seemed to hold its breath. "Almost there," I urged, my voice fierce. "Keep moving." We broke through the fog's edge, into the clearing, the damp earth giving way to a patch of cracked, dry ground. The lantern's glow faltered, unable to pierce the barrier of ancient trees and thick undergrowth that surrounded us. For a fleeting moment, silence reigned. Then the footsteps stopped. We stood, chests heaving, eyes wide and searching the shadows. The Lantern Man's light flickered once more at the edge of the clearing before dimming and disappearing into the night. Relief surged through us, but it was tempered by exhaustion and the knowledge that this respite might only be temporary. "We did it," I whispered, though part of me wondered if we had merely crossed into a new nightmare. Mark sank to the ground, wincing but alive. "For now," he muttered. As dawn threatened to break, the marsh held its secrets tight, and the flicker of hope we clung to burned fragile and bright against the gathering shadows. And still, in the distance, the lantern's light awaited. The night deepened around us as we gathered in the clearing, every sense alert to the marsh's whispered threats. The oppressive fog had lessened here, but the chill in the air was no less biting. Together, We sat, nursing wounds and stealing breaths, each of us haunted by our own fears and memories. "Evelyn," Lena said softly, breaking the heavy silence. "Do you think this place can really be escaped?" I looked around at the faces illuminated by the faint dying embers of hope. "I don't know," I admitted, "but if we don't try, we're already lost." Sarah clicked her camera quietly, her fingers trembling as she captured the haunting stillness. "I've never seen anything like this," she murmured. "But if we survive, the world needs to know." Tom cracked a weak smile. "Maybe there's still a little light left in this darkness." Mark's gaze was distant, caught between pain and something deeper acceptance. "Perhaps. We fight. That's all we can do." The footsteps echoed faintly once more, a reminder that the marsh's grip was not yet broken. But in that clearing, amid the tangled shadows and whispering reeds, we found a moment's peace, a fragile flicker of hope in a night that threatened to swallow us whole. The lantern man's light might flicker, but so did our will to survive, and that made all the difference. The marsh was not done with us yet. As the first pale light of dawn crept over the horizon, I knew the battle was far from over. But for the first time in what felt like forever, I believed we might just see the sun rise beyond this nightmare. The flicker of hope burned bright within us, fragile but unyielding, like the lantern's light in the fogger beacon against the encroaching darkness.